Oftentimes, we'll be asked to find slope algebraically, so we won't be given a formula and we won't be given a graph, but instead we'll be given 2 points. So to find slope from 2 points, we're going to use a formula. The formula is listed here below. So we're always going to do, remember it's dependent variable, so my change in my dependent variable, well my y changes by doing y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So where do y2, y1, x2, and x1 come from? Well, whenever you're given 2 points, we can label our first point as my first x and my first y, and my second point as my second x and my second y. The biggest, most common mistake I see students make when they're using the slope formula is they forget which one was their second one and which one was their first one, and they mix them up when they plug them in. So I would strongly encourage you to make sure and label them as x1 and y1, x2 and y2 to begin with. So remember we had 4 possible slopes, positive, negative, 0, and undefined. The 2 I want to talk about, positive and negative, are pretty self-explanatory. You either get a positive result or a negative result. But 0 and undefined. We know something is a 0 slope if we have 0 over a number, because 0 divided by anything is just 0. It's undefined if we have a number over 0. Whenever we have 0 in the denominator, that is going to be considered undefined. One of the rules of math says that we can never ever divide by 0. One way I like to help me remember that is to think that no, it's not okay to be, let me write it in the order that is here. I like to think it's okay for 0 to be on top, but no, it's not okay for it to be on the bottom. Let's go ahead and dig right into some examples. So I think I have 4 examples if I remember correctly. So the first thing I want to do is find the slope that passes through these 2 points. So I'm going to label this one x1, y1, since it's my first point, and then my second point, my x2 and my y2. Using my formula, m equals y2 minus y1. This is a formula you'll have to memorize, so I would strongly encourage you to write it down as you go. I'm going to have 7 plugging in y2 in the y2 position minus my y1 in the y1 position over x2 minus x1. Now I can go ahead and simplify the top. 7 minus 5 is 2. 4 minus 2 is 2. And I get 2 over 2. As always with fractions, I reduce and I get a slope of 1. Looking at the second example, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go ahead and have an x1 and a y1, an x2 and a y2. And I'm going to go ahead and say that my slope is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And then I'm going to sub in. I'm going to put in negative 1 in the y2 position, negative 2 in the y1 position, negative 2 in the x2, and 3 in the x1, giving me negative 1 minus a negative 2 over negative 2 minus 3. I recognize that minus a minus is going to become a plus. So going ahead and simplifying on top, I now have negative 1 plus 2 gives me 1. And on the bottom, negative 2 minus 3 gives me negative 5. It's usually considered more proper to put the negative on top, so I'm going to go ahead and say I have a slope of negative 1/5. Looking at the final 2 examples, on example 3, I'm going to go through the same steps, x1, y1, x2, y2, and m equals y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1. In the y2 position, I put 2. In the y1, a 2. Over 1 minus a negative 4. And I notice on the bottom, my minus minus can become plus. And on top, I get 0 over 5. And as I saw up above, it is okay to have 0 on top. It just reduces to 0. Looking at one last example, I'm going to go through the same steps. So I'll start by labeling x1 and y1, x2 and y2. Again, plugging it into that same formula, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, gives me a -4 minus 1 on top, 2 minus 2 on the bottom. Simplifying the top, I get -5, 0 on the bottom. Again, we can't have zeros in the bottom, so I'm going to go ahead and say that my slope is undefined. Please make sure you bring your notes with you to class so you can use them as a tool as you're going through your practice.